The journey home to self. So you'll hear me reference this a lot. You'll hear me reference living from here. What does that mean exactly? Right? It means living from this place of alignment, this place of truth that is within you, that nobody else can tell you what it is. People can provide you pointers. People can help guide you. People can help you to uncover that, to remember who you are. They can reflect back to you things that are true about your true nature and who you are in the uniqueness of yourself. But they can't define fully who you are. Only you have the capability and the ability to do that. You see, the journey home to self, it's not about becoming someone. I've always described this journey of awakening, this journey of healing, however you want to term it, right? As an unbecoming. It's an unbecoming because you are stripping away all of the layers and all of the things that are not you. And the fact is, so many of us, we become so entrenched with the identity that we have, with who we were told to be, with who we were sold to be, right? With the expectations of who we should be. And those expectations and those rules and those obligations and all of those things come from all of the experiences in life. They come from family, they come from friends, they come from religion, they come from society, they come from government, right? They come from education. They come from layers and layers and layers of different things and all of the experiences put together. And at some point, you'll find yourself maybe questioning, why isn't the life that I'm leading the life that I dreamed of, the life that I envisioned? That's not to say that everything in your life is terrible or bad or anything, but it's just not quite what you were thinking. And some people will say, well, that's just life. And to an extent, there is some truth to that because life does have an energy of its own, and our job is to work within the flow of life, work within the flow of all that is. If we are constantly going against life, then all we are doing is having two opposing forces come together and butt heads with one another, creating what? Chaos. Usually creates some form of dysfunction or destruction, right? Rather than determining what is the flow, how do I best flow through the natural flow of life that exists? How do I maintain balance? Think of a surfboard rider, right? I've never been on a surfboard, but I've been in the ocean enough and been on waves enough to understand the concept. Skateboarding, very similar, right? But the thing about the oceans is the waves are constantly changing. Each wave is different. Each wave is unique, and so it is with life. Each of us are unique individuals, and life has an energy all of its own. And based on our experiences that we have had, we will learn certain ways of navigating life. Some of those ways are very good, very supportive. Some of those ways, not so much. I know that the ways that I followed life was I followed the script I was given. I followed the rules of how I was supposed to be, what I was supposed to do. Be obedient to God, they would say, and God will bless you richly. Until my life came to a point where it felt like I had been obedient to God, as obedient as I thought I could be. Really, really tried to be a good person, obey, do the things that I was taught, be a servant of others, right? And yet my life did not feel like it had a remote amount of joy in it. It felt very heavy. It felt like a life I was always wanting to escape from. And then things blew up, at least for the first time, and I started rejecting the rules and things because I had followed them for so long, and I was like, this is where all of these rules led me to. This is where the script led me. I thought I was doing great at this. Obviously, this doesn't work. And I began to search, and I began to look even more diligently. Rather than just the rule list that I was supposed to follow, I began to work outside of that. And I still had a lot of learning that I had to do. But all of it was the process of uncovering, of pulling these rules away and seeing what happened if I didn't follow this particular rule that I was supposed to follow. What happened if I dove deeper and asked deeper questions? What would happen if I actually began to put boundaries in place? If I began to think about myself and think about, what does Michael actually want? What does Michael actually desire? So the journey home to self, it's not about becoming somebody, because then we're just grasping for a new identity. Give me something that I can hold on to and cling on to, right? As my identity. That will create some issues in and of itself. We need to be able to step into identities, different roles now and then, without being attached to them, without those roles themselves identifying or giving us our value, because it simply is that we are valuable and worthy because we are, right? And that goes against one of the rules that I grew up with, the rule that said you were a born sinner. The rule said I needed saving by somebody else. I needed to be saved by Jesus because I couldn't save myself. That I was corrupt. That I was, as some of the songs say, a wretch, right? And when you have that worldview, when you ingrain that and believe that, that becomes part of your system, that becomes part of your unconscious. And that is the way that you begin interacting with the world. You are viewing yourself from a place of brokenness, from a place where you are incomplete, and only something out there can complete it. What the journey home to self is it brings you back here. And it says there is nothing for you out there. There are pointers out there. There are mirrors out there that can help reflect good things back to you, that can also help reflect places where there might be gaps, places where you could do better, places where your coping mechanisms maybe need some adjustment, places where there's a little bit of dysfunction or unhealthy ways in which you were interacting with yourself, interacting with others, and interacting with the world. It is all about inner work, because all transformation begins here. It begins inside of you. It does not begin out there. And nobody else is going to come in and transform you and change you, right? Lots of times I know people talk about looking to God and looking to Jesus. Jesus, just please help me with this. Take this burden away from me, right? Take this challenge away from me. And there's nothing wrong with praying to source, or with praying to a higher deity, or however you want to term that, right? But once we start abdicating our own internal power and saying, I can't do this, I need you to do it for me, then we are in a mode of begging. We are in a mode where we feel like we're a victim, we're helpless, we don't have the power to change anything. And yet, the Bible, if you want to go back to the Bible, since I'm talking about Jesus a little bit, it says just the opposite. It says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that it is your responsibility. The transformation starts here with you, setting your attention and your intention up on change, doing the inner work. It says you are the temple. It says that the I am, God, source, all that is, resides within you. You are the temple. You are the tabernacle. The journey home to self, it's about uncovering the person that you've always been. And that's a lot easier than going out there and seeking and trying to find, what am I looking for? What am I looking? I know I'm looking for something. I just don't know what it is. And so it's like trying on a pair of shoes, except it's much more complicated than that, right? You're trying on all these different pairs of shoes to see which one fits, to see which one fits. Maybe one fits, maybe it feels like it fits, but you walk in it for a while and no, that's just not it, right? So you take them off and you start looking for another pair, right? It's about uncovering the person that you've always been, because you've always been that unique individual. You are a unique expression of the divine. You are the Word become flesh. You are the incarnation, because you have moved from your spiritual self, which is part of the all, which is part of everything, which is part of God, and you have chosen to incarnate in this physical form, to have experiences that you cannot have solely in the spiritual realm. The question that you can ask yourself is, who were you before you learned who you couldn't be? If you want to reword that for you specifically, who was I before I learned I couldn't be me? Who was I before I learned that I couldn't be me, that I couldn't show up as me, that I had to hide parts of myself, that I had to shrink, right? That I had to be what everybody else wanted, that I had to behave a certain way. Who was I before all of those rules and those scripts and those expectations were laid upon you, were imprinted upon you through the experiences? And don't take any of this to say that the experiences that you've had were bad or negative or kept you from learning the truth at an earlier age, because everything happens in divine timing. Everything happens and has unfolded just as it needed to for your highest and best. There is no right or wrong time to any of it. Everything has occurred the way it needed to occur, even if we don't understand it. And sometimes, if we try to understand it, we can spend an awful lot of our time and our attention focused back there, trying to turn over every little rock in our past to look for that one answer. Generally, there isn't just one answer. It's a myriad of things. And maybe there are some critical juncture points, some critical things that happened at certain points in your life. Yes, that could be very true. Even maybe just one thing that happened that set you down a certain course or a certain path. It's okay to look back at these things from a higher level, but we don't want to look back upon them to the extent that we lose ourselves in the past and all of our energy is being directed there, because then when it is there, we cannot be here. When we are completely back there in the past, we cannot be present with what is now. And really, all we need to do now is look at, what is the energy that's showing up in me right now? What are the fears that are showing up in me right now? What are the good things that are showing up in me right now? What are the things that I am drawn to right now, even if I don't understand it? What are the things that interest me, right? If I'm feeling some heaviness, is this heaviness something that I can feel right now and release right now, regardless of where it came from and when it came from? All of this is work, is an unbecoming, it's an uncovering, it's a remembering of who you are, a unique expression of the divine. One of the greatest sayings that I have, that I live by, it's sitting up engraved in a on a piece of wood in my living room, says, "We are spiritual beings having a human experience." And when we understand that, And we understand that we are eternal. And we understand that this is an experience that we are having. And we understand that we came in with everything that we needed. You notice how when two babies are born, I'll never forget this. But when my youngest was born, she came into the world very much with a personality and a way of being that was unique to her, different from her sisters. And she had that right out of the gate. Now, yes, were there experiences in her life, even in the womb, that helped mold who she is today and the version that she's living as today? Yes, absolutely. And yet, those things were also combined with her predisposition to some things as well, with that personality that she came in with, those characteristics that she came in with. And it's a beautiful thing because when you remember who you are and you begin this discovery process, and that's what I love about this uncovering. Yes, it can be fearful at times, it can be scary to begin looking within, the one place where most things have told us not to look. I know from a religious perspective, they told me not to look within because when you look within, then you are looking at self. And to look at self is to take your eyes off God. And it means that the devil has gotten a hold of you because you were thinking about yourself. And yet the simple fact is we must know ourselves in this world, in this place. Part of knowing yourself is uncovering the truth of who you are, what speaks to you, what calls to you, what is aligned with you, right? And then living that and expressing from that truth and that authenticity in the world. All of this is a discovery process. It's like untangling a big ball of Christmas lights. Like we've all seen Christmas Vacation, maybe, right? Clark hands Russ that big ball of wadded up, tangled up Christmas lights. He says, looks like there's a little knot here. That's what uncovering the person that you've always been is. You are the light of the world. Your light has likely been dimmed in some fashion by who you were supposed to be, by who you were told and taught to be. So we go back to the question, who was I before I learned that I couldn't be me? And let your mind, let your body, let your being ruminate on that question. Let that percolate within you and see what comes through and begin to uncover. Begin the unbecoming process. Begin remembering more of the truth of who you are. That is where you will find your freedom. That is where you will find your power. That is where you will find your sovereignty. These are all wonderful things that we need in this life for these experiences. Come home to self and then live from that place. Jesus says, love thy neighbor as thyself. Notice that loving thy neighbor is a byproduct of loving thyself, of filling thy cup and making sure that your cup is full, because that's your responsibility to make sure that your cup is full and that it is overflowing. And from that overflow, then you are able to freely give. You are able to freely love your neighbor just as you have been loving yourself by doing the things necessary to fill up your own cup. I'm going to leave you with that today. Blessings and love to each of you.